My wife, Nancy, who is 28, held a talent show at our wedding reception. Her friend, Kate, who I've known since college, networked with a guest who wants to potentially work with her. She's become bitter since the event. The past few days have shown a different side of her that's a little surprising because Kate is her best friend from college. Nancy wanted to do a mini talent show at the reception, and she talked it up beforehand too. She read a poem that she made for the event, and Kate performed a song that she wrote. Long story short, one of the guests who I invited is into producing, and he reached out to her after she performed. They exchanged information, and Kate was really excited. He wanted to network with her following the reception, and she even thanked my wife for hosting the talent show over text. But Nancy became really bitter about it, and that's why I'm writing this. She hasn't responded to Kate's message, and she said she regretted doing the talent show too. She also asked me to block Edward, the producer, on our socials and in our contacts. I told her that seemed a bit much, and she didn't like my answer. She said that I was wrong to not take her side after just getting married, but I told her that she should be happy for her friend. She didn't like that either. Invented to summon our friend group about how Kate was bragging, but some of them disagreed. She said she didn't want to hang out with them for the time being, and that included me too. Two of her girlfriends even texted me that she was overreacting, and that they were also surprised to see her act that way. They also asked if she was okay. My dad is suggesting counseling, and said that asking me to remove friends is an unhealthy way to start a marriage. I'm honestly more than a little scared. I asked if she'd be open to counseling, but she said there was no need because Kate was her friend first, and I shouldn't choose Kate over her. I want to ask what to do next since she refused counseling and sees no issue with cutting off her friends. Edit. I want to add that Nancy complained that her poem didn't get as good of a reception as Kate's song. Kate didn't study music in college but practices on the side, and her text was really thankful for the opportunity that the talent show provided. Kate is also engaged to her longtime boyfriend. Update. It's been a little over 2 weeks since my first post, and I've had some time to try and process a lot of it. Still, it feels surreal having known her since my early 20s and the 1880 after the wedding. I want to address a few things that were asked in my first post before getting to the update. Nancy and Kate were not the only ones who performed in the talent show. During planning, Nancy said she wanted to showcase her friends and how awesome and proud she was to have them. She also said it was a bonding thing between her girlfriends from her friend group, and the girls were the ones who performed. However, given her post-reception 180, it really surprised me in comparison to her pre-talent show mindset. A few people commented that she didn't need to have a talent show to read the poem she made for the wedding. She could have just read it at any time as the bride. The reason I'm writing this post is because of something else that came up, which led to a conversation. We had a vacation coming up, but she no longer wants to go on it. In the time since my first post, she's continued to have random mood swings due to thinking about Kate. Sometimes that's venting about how Kate would have nothing without her, or getting really quiet and distant, even while eating. She's also still upset at her girlfriends, to whom she vented about Kate. But when they disagreed and called her out for being bitter over the tent show, no one forced her to have it. She told me to cut off our friend group, along with blocking the producer and girlfriends too. When I disagreed, she became distant and said I was choosing them over her. My dad suggested counseling and talking to her again because asking me to cut off friends was an unhealthy start to the relationship. So, I talked to her after my first post and asked if she'd be open to it. But she said there was no need because all I had to do was cut them off. She also said I was choosing them over her, and that she wouldn't go on her vacation until I did. When I asked her why Kate bothered her so much, she said she tried to publish a novel in the past and didn't get any hand-me-downs then. But when I reminded her that my friend was a producer on the side in his basement, she said I should have known better than to invite him, as if I should have known he would have liked Kate's song. When I told her that I wouldn't block the producer and entire friend group, she said I was entitled, like Kate, and that she wanted a break because I didn't care about her. I told her that I love her, but didn't think it was healthy to cut off everyone. I also told her that she should be happy for her friend because Kate was really grateful, but she didn't seem to care. She has since gone to stay with her parents and left some of her things in our apartment. I talked to my dad, and she ignored texts and calls for a few days, and he suggested bringing up an arrangement because it had gone too far. Her parents have also ignored my calls, but I want to clarify Kate's text before I'm done. Kate wasn't arrogant or anything to Nancy. All she did was thank her for putting together the talent show that allowed her to network with the producer after the wedding, and she also offered to take her out to lunch as thanks. There's no arrogance from Kate, and the producer is also engaged, as some people inquired about. I'm just really surprised that her bitterness turned me into a bad guy for inviting my producer friend, as if I was supposed to see that into the future and not invite him. Nancy got the idea to make a poem for the reception after watching the poet Amanda Gorman read her works at the inauguration and the Super Bowl. She also said that it wasn't out of place for her to read at the reception when most people watching football aren't smart enough to appreciate poetry. She's definitely struggling with some insecurities here and totally taking her feelings out on you. Instead of celebrating her friend's success, she's asking you to cut off people from your life to make her feel better, which is not a great way to handle conflict in a relationship. On top of it all, it's hard to make progress in a relationship when one partner isn't open to it. If Nancy refuses to talk about this in a constructive way, take it as a sign that there are deeper issues that need to be addressed. You shouldn't feel forced to choose between your wife and your friends. Update. I just wanted to come back to conclude this because it's been helpful to hear opinions and get everything out. A lot of people asked how I was in messages, and there were too many to reply to. We are currently in the process of a divorce. She's staying with her parents, and I've had some time to process and see things differently. I want to touch on two things that happened since my update. The first is a Facebook post she made about me. In her post, she said she was supposed to win and that it was an unwritten rule for the bride to win, as if wedding talent shows are normal. She also accused them of smiting her on her day, when no one knew about the show beforehand except her participating friends. She then accused me of taking Kate's side instead of comforting her as her new husband, but taking her side meant cutting off our friend group, as she had done in the aftermath. I don't know how her parents feel after she called out both sides of the guests, but I really don't care at this point. She also wanted me to cut off my producer friend Edward, who approached Kate after she performed her original song and asked if they wanted to collaborate sometime. I want to focus on that. I talked to Edward recently about everything, including how she wanted me to cut him off, and he couldn't believe how much it affected her. Nancy and I watched a football game at his house with him and his fiancée some months back, and he has a day job in an office. When I told him about how Nancy was jealous of Kate's big break, he couldn't believe it and said that he planned to let Kate use his audio interface to plug into her guitar and record a high-quality instrumental of her original song with his microphone too. He also said he wasn't great at mixing and was taking online courses to learn, so he was going to suggest that she commission someone to mix and enhance the files they'd record because he was far from a professional. He's a really chill guy, but he couldn't stop laughing over how Nancy thought that he was all that. He only wanted to use his interface to give her a high-quality recording after learning that she didn't have equipment and recorded her original on her phone. He and his fiancée planned to have her for dinner, just like they had me and Nancy over for football, and recorded in the basement afterwards. Looking back, it's crazy how you can be blinded to things, but I never imagined just how crazy she could get. I didn't say this in my first two posts because I thought it might overshadow her actions, but she sometimes posts about women empowerment on her socials. I recently thought about that for one reason. When I asked her why she wanted to have a talent show, she said she wanted to emphasize the importance of having good friends because they were important to her relationship. But as I look at it now, perhaps it was never about that. Nancy was bothered the second that Kate's song got a better reception than hers, and she doubled down when she vented to two of her girlfriends after the wedding. They called her out for being jealous, and that made her demand I also cut off our friend group. To everyone who asked what her poem was about, she'd say it was about women empowerment and the importance of having good friends and family when starting a family. She told me the premise beforehand, although she never showed me the poem. She wanted it to be a surprise, but I never had a chance to see it on paper after the wedding, for reasons many people also corrected. She said that Kate received a hand-me-down opportunity at the wedding, but the proper term was handout, as many corrected. I really appreciate everyone who offered advice, as it helped a lot mentally. Not to mention, looking back at how crazy it all was, just hoping to fully get over it as time goes on. But I've gotten over some of it recently. Update 3. I really thought my last update would be my last, but Nancy apparently had other ideas. This update doesn't really involve me, and is mostly for those who have reached out via DMS, because I can't reply to all of them. So this is more convenient. Months later, I'm grateful that everything came out when it did, and we are officially no longer together. She wanted nothing to do with me after accusing me of taking Kate's side by refusing to cut off friends who said she overreacted when she vented about Kate stealing her thunder by getting a better reception for her song, among other hateful things she said about her. That made the process easier. However, months later, Nancy's still not over it. But I want to give an update on Kate first. Kate reached out to me towards the end of the divorce process because Nancy took out her frustration on her. She told me some things I didn't know. I mentioned in my first update that Kate sent a text thanking Nancy for the opportunity to sing at the wedding after it led to her meeting the producer. She sent shortly after the reception, however, unbeknownst to me, Nancy sent her DMS blaming her for the divorce before it was official, and that was news to me. She told me she was sorry for performing at the wedding along with the divorce, but I told her that she had nothing to apologize for. Her best friend, Nancy, asked her to perform, and she simply did. But Nancy didn't stop at DMS since my last update on the divorce becoming official. Nancy went online to make her feelings public, not just about Kate, but the friends who said she was overreacting too. She said that her friends should have talked her out of the talent show because friends look after each other. When the talent show was her idea entirely, that she pushed for against suggestions otherwise, she accused them of being fake friends who never had her back and sided with Kate over her. And she had the nerve to tag them too. However, she saved the worst for Kate. She accused Kate and her friends of setting her up, and she made a separate Facebook post to rant about Kate. She also called her names, among other things, and disclosed some mental health challenges and medications from Kate's past. It was petty and very inappropriate. I want to reiterate that Kate was her best friend long before me. Nancy also disclosed a very personal event from Kate's life, which was wrong and led to people finding out that Kate hadn't told. This caused her a lot of stress, from what I've heard. Some of the people in Nancy's friend group reached out to me before the divorce too. One of them, we'll call her Hannah, knew Nancy before me as well. Hannah said that she knew about Nancy's struggles to publish, as she vented years back after I told her about my talk with Nancy, where she brought up her publishing struggles. She said that many of them tried to encourage her. However, she never saw that jealous side of her, despite knowing her for much longer. She thinks it was the culmination of wedding stress among other things, but she didn't want to chalk it up to just that because she said it was a deeper insecurity. She also told me not to beat myself up too much because her friend group never saw that side of her, either, and they knew her for years before me. Nanae's friend group has since cut her off, but the last thing I'll say is on Kate. Kate and her friends have been really supportive and even apologized for not talking her out of the talent show beforehand. But I told them that they had nothing to apologize for, because Nancy accused me of inviting my producer friend and not magically knowing that he would have networked with Kate. Hannah said that Kate's been really hurt about the sensitive posts and having to explain to people she never told. She also said that Kate's thinking of trying to go after Nancy legally, but she's not sure if anything can be done since it was on Facebook, now deleted. Although she got screenshots, it's apparently taken a toll on her mental health to the point that she's trying to see her options. I won't come back to this again because it doesn't really involve me at this point, but I'm trying my best to be supportive of her too because she didn't deserve any of this. I hope it all works out for her in time, whether she decides to pursue legally or not. Now let's let the community weigh in. First up, he should be GL. Good luck. The talent show happened. The crazy side of her would have come out sooner or later. At least he found out about it pretty quickly, so the divorce was hopefully easy. I don't understand full adults who have the maturity levels of a teenager. Like, how do you go around life without growing up? Someone else chimes in, one of my friends had karaoke at her wedding. She fully embraced up front that she wanted to sing. She has a great voice and really diva'd up on her beautiful dress and makeup. She got to sing first and again to close the karaoke segment, and then one final time at the end of the night with all of us singing along too. It was so fun. I didn't even sing, and I really enjoyed it. It was so fun and unique. The bride loved having so many friends participate, and there was never any jealousy. A talent show is a weird choice for a wedding, especially to showcase a poem that would fit into a wedding anyway. Maybe I'm biased because I have a big dancing and musical family that loves sharing their gifts at get-togethers. Pretty much any family invite, even at Nana's online funeral during COVID, had a dancing portion. It said to bring comfortable dancing shoes and an instrument if you wanted to play. And I just love the inclusion and connection that could have been a beautiful, although unusual, wedding activity that people would remember fondly. Unfortunately, it will only have the memorable thing going for it after this bride's unnecessary jealousy. It sounds like there was a lot more going on beneath the surface with Nancy than you realized initially. It's good that you're not beating yourself up about not seeing the signs earlier. Sometimes people can hide their insecurities really well until something triggers them. Not to mention that her friend group has distanced themselves now. It sounds like they're starting to see her for who she really is, and that's probably a relief on some level.